Netanyahu is scrambling to keep his prime minister job in Israel after Tuesday's elections. And honestly, the outlook is not looking so good. What is the latest with the elections in Israel? And how does this affect the Palestinians? That is the big question that we're going to be talking about right now. So let's go ahead and talk about the Israeli elections and why they even are having this second election this time around. If you remember, they had elections back in April and things didn't go so well. So they had to actually have a new election that just happened on Tuesday. And again, guess what? Things are not going so well. So the way this works is that Israel is a parliament. So I'm going to try to break this down for you as simple as possible. But Israel is a parliamentary system, and it's called the Knesset. And in the Knesset, they have 120 seats that they've got. And you need to have a majority. So you need to have at least 61 seats in order to lead the Knesset. And they've got about 9 political parties. They have a few more than that, but 9 political parties actually have enough strength in the population to actually win seats in the Knesset. So some political parties, they just don't get enough support and they don't get any representation. Now, the biggest parties are the Blue and White and the Likud. And Netanyahu is a member of the Likud party, which is a very right-wing party. And the Blue and White is more of a centrist party, but they lean more left. They're more liberal. Now, like I said, in order to govern, you need over 60 seats. Now, what happened in April was that the Blue and White party and the Likud both ended up with 35 seats in the election. They each got 35 seats. So that means 70 seats are accounted for, but there's 120 seats total in the parliament. So what a parliamentary system usually happens within that system is you have to form coalitions with other parties. So, for example, here in the United States, let's say we had more than 2 parties. If we had the Republican Party and that was one party, but then there was also the Tea Party and maybe the Libertarian Party or something. And then over in the Democratic side, you had the Democrats, and then maybe you had the Progressives, and maybe you have the Blue Dogs, right? So they're more centrist, and then, you've got a variety of different parties going on. And in order to govern, you would need to form coalitions with other parties. So you would have to make some concessions, you would have to negotiate deals, and in order to gain that support. Well, in the end, when the Blue and White Party and the Likud Party, which both ended up with last time 35 seats each, when they ended up forming their coalitions, they scurried around, they formed coalitions with other parties. They ended up with 56 and 55 seats, respectively. So they didn't end up with those 60 plus seats needed in order to actually say, okay, the deal is done. Now we've named our prime minister, and it's Netanyahu again, who is the longest serving prime minister in Israel currently. So they couldn't get the necessary, neither party could get the necessary over 60 seats. But there was a better chance of Netanyahu getting those seats than the Blue and White centrist party. The reason is because there's one party, I can't pronounce the name, so I'm just not going to even try, but it is led by this man named Lieberman. And it's a very right-wing military kind of based party. It's Russian Israelis primarily. And I believe they have 9 seats. And so Netanyahu, back in April, tried to woo that party in to the coalition so that he could then reign again as prime minister, no problem. But Lieberman refused to join Netanyahu's coalition over a dispute about military conscription. So what it is that in Israel, everybody has to join the military. They have automatic mandatory conscription into their military, except if you are one particular type of, if you are it's an ultra orthodox form of Judaism, and if you're in that particular sect, then you don't have to serve. And this has really pissed off the constituents in Lieberman's camp. And they wanted to do a deal saying, look, we'll join you, but you've got to work on changing that rule to where these people get exempted from going to the military service when the rest of us have to go and risk our lives. And these guys get to sit out because they're ultra religious. But Netanyahu refused. He said, no, I'm not going to do that, because he was worried that that would piss off the other party in his coalition, which was that group. So he was basically having to make a trade. He could get Lieberman's group that wanted everybody in conscription service, but he would lose the ultra-Orthodox group that was not having to do the conscription service. So it was something he wasn't willing to do. And what he decided to do instead was to essentially say, no, I'm not going to make that agreement, and that triggered a new election in September. And his hope was that he would gain a bigger majority in this election. In order to gain that bigger majority, this is why all of this is important, and I'm boring you with all this information, is he made a lot of promises. And those promises were particularly very much against the Palestinians. So Netanyahu has gone around making, first of all, we saw him carve out part of the Golan Heights. So he annexed the Golan Heights. Then he carves out a part of it and calls it Trump Heights, trying to get in good with Donald Trump, trying to get the Israelis to say, oh, look, I'm buddies with Trump, and that's why you want me to be in power. He then also said that he would go and fully occupy and annex areas of the West Bank, taking that land from the Palestinians and basically killing off a potential two-state solution. So he's gone very hard line, very much against the Palestinians, in hopes that this would rile up the Israelis and that they would secure him a larger majority in the September elections. But it didn't work. In fact, it was worse. So that's the good news. The good news is that this time around, actually, the party that received the third most votes is the Arab-based party in the Israeli parliament. And this time around, rather than both the blue and white and the Likud receiving 35 each, they received so far 32 and 31. Now, the elections, I don't believe they've counted everything, but it's looking like he's losing seats by a slight margin to the blue and white. Now, this spells utter doom for Netanyahu, essentially, and this could potentially be a very good thing for the Palestinians, because Netanyahu, there's really two options now for him in order to keep his job. And by the way, a lot of people in Israel, a couple of so he was trying this whole tactic of, well, if I say I'm going to basically get rid of the Palestinians and end a two-state solution and annex parts of, the Golan Heights and parts of the West Bank and all of these things, if I go hardline on all of this and expand the nation, and he really thought that would work. But another thing is that Netanyahu is facing some charges, some corruption charges. He was giving gifts. He was trading favors essentially for good press from media. He was doing a lot of corrupt things in office, and he's potentially facing criminal charges and jail time. That didn't sit well with the Israeli people. They don't want a corrupt government. So, and with the Arab Party, in the Israeli parliament gaining the third most number of votes, that also says something. That says that people are not so thrilled about this potential one-state solution of Israel just kind of taking over. In fact, the studies show that majority of people want a two-state solution on both sides. So this whole idea of annexing and taking over, it wasn't sitting so well with people. So he kind of gambled, and it looks like he's losing. So there's two options left for Netanyahu to potentially stay in power, and we're going to be paying close attention these next coming days. The first option is he could try again with that Russian-Israeli group and hope that they join anyway. So he could decide, he could try again with them and say, look, I guess he could try to say, okay, I'll go with your demands of getting rid of the exemption of the conscripted service for that ultra-Orthodox group. But then he would probably lose that ultra-Orthodox group. So that's going to be a real gamble. Or maybe that particular party run by Lieberman will cave and say, okay, never mind. We don't need that bad. We're fine. We'd rather have the coalition, and so that you remain in power. That's possible because Lieberman is very hawkish and very staunch when it comes to the Palestinians. And he's so it's possible that he does make that choice. That would be very bad. The second choice would be to form a coalition between the blue and white party and the Likud party. And that would then keep, well, that outlook, that option is tricky, because actually the blue and whites said that they would be willing to form a coalition with the Likud party on one condition: Netanyahu is not the leader. So this could spell doom for Netanyahu, because a lot of the Israeli population and a lot of the leaders that are in parliament are going to be pushing for a coalition. Most people are thinking that that's the most, that's really the path forward, is for the Likud party and the blue and whites to form a coalition in order for them to start operating again. But again, blue and whites won't do it if Netanyahu is in power. So that is a more likely scenario. Now, Netanyahu is going to be trying to play that Lieberman group, and he's going to be pushing more for that because he knows that the coalition with the blue and whites means he's out of a job, and then he's going to probably go to jail. So he's going to be pushing for the coalition with the Lieberman group, and it's going to be really interesting these next couple of days as he's kind of lobbying for this. And we're already seeing the beginnings of this. When he gave his speech after the elections were over, he cited, he really pushed about, he talked a lot about his relationship with Trump, and he also talked about Iran. And he's saying, oh, we're in an unprecedented situation. Look at Iran. They're becoming hostile. Look what they're doing. They're attacking Saudi Arabia. And so, you need me. You need me. He's trying to show that he is an indispensable person because you need him to lead the Israelis against the Iranian threat and also to remain friends with Trump. But Trump has come out and said, yeah, I like Netanyahu, but, we're friends with the Israelis. It doesn't really matter. So that is going to be an interesting thing for Netanyahu to play. That is the card he's playing right now. We're going to see what happens. Now, on the Palestinian side of things, the way they're viewing it is it's kind of a mixed bag. Some Palestinians say, look, we just want Netanyahu gone. We believe that with Netanyahu gone, that this will give us more breathing room, that a two-state solution is back on the table, that we could potentially have peace in the region. Others are saying Netanyahu is just a piece in the puzzle. And really with him gone, you'll see he wasn't the one really leading the charge, that there's other forces behind him that are leading the charge towards a one-state Israeli total solution. So, but, the way I see it is you got to try, right? So we know what life is like for the Palestinians under Netanyahu. What we don't know is what life is like without him. He's been prime minister of Israel for so long, we don't know. So it would be nice to see what kind of potential peace agreement or two-state solution could be had, if any, if Netanyahu's gone and if he's no longer threatening them all the time. So that is what I would like to see personally. I think many of us would like to see Netanyahu gone. The guy's a warmonger, and he's very threatening to not only the Palestinian people, but to the United States military, because he's constantly trying to engage us in a battle with Iran, which makes everything even more suspect about what is going on with these supposed Iranian attacks. So that is the latest with the Israeli elections, and I will keep you posted on that because this is a big deal, especially for the lives of the Palestinians, and I will stay on that for you guys. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching this show. If you would like to support the show, I do have my links down below, Patreon and PayPal. I appreciate that, and you can always email me as well. I do read all the emails I get. I don't respond to all of them, but I do read all of them, actually. So if you're emailing me, I am reading it. And you can send those emails in to through my website at kimiverson.com, and that link is down below as well. Thank you for watching.